Get away from me, white boy. You see what you Augs caused? This whole city deserves to burn, just like Sodom.
Boys, what's a word that starts with N and ends with R, and you don't want to call a black person this? Come on, you know what it is. Boys, what's the word? Neighbor, you got it. Good job. Boys, we are back with the next installment of Deus Ex. We are covering Deus Ex Human Revolution, the director's cut. Human Revolution, it came out in 2011. It is a prequel / reboot of the original game. The game takes place in 2027. The original took place in 2052. It came out 11 years after the original. The original came out in 2000, Invisible War 2003. I really loved the original game. Invisible War, hated it. That was pretty bad. Human Revolution, many people say that this is a fine starting point to the series and overall a good game. I strongly disagree with both of those points. I don't think it's a good game. It is absolutely not a good place to start with the series. It's very, very different from the original, and a lot of things are far worse. Again, this video is going to be full spoilers. I hated it. I thought the game was a serious downgrade compared to the original, and we're just going to begin. I'm just going to list out a lot of my issues with the game, and then I just have some notes on, as I was playing, like going level by level, what I was thinking, how I felt. I played the director's cut of the game. I know that this changed things from the original. From what I can tell, there is no way to play the original game online anymore. You would have to have like a physical copy of it because it just forces the director's cut everywhere you could buy it. So I know there was like that infamous piss filter and that was gone. So I know they also tweaked some of the boss fights so you would be able to handle bosses in more non-lethal methods. Also, they forced the DLC into the main game, right? You can't skip it or like play it out of the main menu. And I believe they added like a little side mission with Tracer Tong. I don't think that was in the original. And I think maybe there were a couple of other smaller things. Just starting out, the biggest problem with Human Revolution is that prequels are inherently less interesting. Because you, the player, know, if you've played the original game, that certain things must happen and some things cannot happen. You really need to invest in our characters and their own personal stories for you to care, right? Because you already know, like, okay, the plot can't do anything too crazy. You're on a roller coaster and you already know, like, how it has to end, where we have to end up. So yeah, prequels are inherently just worse. I don't really know any examples, maybe you can name one, where you have a really popular series and then you just have a prequel come out for any medium, a movie, a book, video game, and the prequel is as good, if not better, than the original game. I don't think that's ever happened. I might be wrong, but I think the overall consensus is prequels are just a bit worse because there's less you can do with them. And in terms of investing in our characters and really caring about them, Adam Jensen, he was a serious downgrade from JC Denton for me. I like JC. I liked how he talked. I liked his personality. I think JC had just enough character to be like really effective and endearing to you. Adam Jensen for me was just a bit too cliche, and his story where he's just this mid-2000s former cop, blah, 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 trauma. Here's his mid-2000s girlfriend. I didn't really care. I just found him to be rather boring. I wasn't like really impressed with him. And since the character of Adam is like very important to the game, I've played this character before. I wasn't really like blown out of the water with JC Denton, but I enjoyed playing as JC Denton a lot more than Adam Jensen. Human Revolution, it wears the skin of Deus Ex, but I don't think it embraces it at all. Like the inclusion of the Illuminati, like the beginning intro cutscene with Bob Page speaking, he's talking to a group of shadowy people. It felt like there's something they had to include. Don't really get into it like the first game. Like you see Bob Page in the intro cutscene, right? And then guess what? You have some interactions with Bob Page more towards the end of the game. He's not really a factor in the beginning parts, but you actually get to like interact with him. You never get to interact with Bob Page in this game. The Illuminati, which was integral to the first game, it just feels like forced, right? Not a really big deal. And the conspiracy theories, which were like so important, they were the backbone to Deus Ex in the first game, those have mostly been cut, or they're really just held at like arm's length. And the weirder aspects of the game have been cut too. Things like aliens, the Greasels, the Karikans, those are all gone, right? All like the weird kind of animals, Roswell, this conspiracy, that conspiracy. You have the Lazarus radio show, and he talks about conspiracies. He's like an Alex Jones or Rush Limbaugh figure. However, I don't think we're meant to take this character seriously. He is correct about certain things that are happening as you're progressing throughout the game, but from the developers, and I'll get into like some of the political jabs that the developers put in their game and why I think we're supposed to mock or belittle Lazarus. Like, even though maybe he's correct on some things, we're not supposed to like Lazarus. It's for like the conspiracy people, right? But now it's like you're almost embarrassed to talk about conspiracies. The mini game of hacking itself, it was good in the first game when it was just like a little bar and then the little bar went down as you hacked. That was fine. That was completely fine. It didn't have to be a full-on fucking mini game, and you didn't have to waste so many augmentations on hacking. Very dumb. And also, why do people freak the fuck out when you hack in this game? You're just like at a keypad, I would suppose, just like typing stuff in, but people just pull out guns and start trying to like shoot you whenever you're hacking, right? And since multi-tools and lockpicks also don't exist in this game, like if someone saw me with a multi-tool out and I was like hacking a door, they'd be like, hey, you're trying to hack with that multi-tool. That would make sense. But them just freaking out by me like being next to a terminal or whatever, it doesn't work for me. And the game says no to like Greasels and aliens, but we do get screaming computer women at the end that don't fit the world at all. Like, oh no, the aliens, that was too much. But yeah, crazy screaming computer women, that makes sense. I'll say more on that later, but oh yeah, that definitely doesn't break the game at all. Themes in game one, you had so much. You had conspiracies just in general. You had the Illuminati, transhumanism, the surveillance state, the wealth gap, human identity, globalism, localism, terrorism, propaganda. There's a lot, right? I'm sure I'm missing plenty. What does this game have going for it? Augs, right? The augmentation question. That is all that this game has going for it. If you got rid of augs, this game would have very little else to it. Speaking of augmentations and how angry the populace is one way or the other, should augmentations be regulated or not? People in the world talk about augmented people taking their jobs and such. What jobs are being taken exactly? Like, we don't get a lot of like concrete examples that are offered up to us. Even though augmentations are front and center, yes, augs are definitely a part of the world of Deus Ex in the first game. However, augmented people, I think they look a lot better in game one. They look like Gunther or Anna. They look, frankly, kind of monstrous, right? There's a price to your augmentations. And in here, it's just like cool and fashionable, and they look good. And I get it, that's like a prequel or reboot, but it doesn't really fit the setting. Are there any examples of jobs that are only for augmented people? Like maybe construction jobs put pressure on people to get like arm upgrades or leg upgrades or whatever, like whatever field. Megan in the intro mentions that there are neural augs that help people think faster. And I could like really see dystopian mega corporations forcing those on people so they're more productive workers. But it doesn't get brought up, right? The game never really mentions like, hey, my corporation that is like really cruel and mean to its employees is forcing us to get these upgrades, and there are a lot of really bad side effects to it, but I don't want to lose my job, right? That never happens. The outfits, I know they were trying something different, but like the outfits, the architecture, this is too futuristic. It doesn't fit. I know it's a quote unquote golden age going on. I don't believe it, frankly. For augmentations that you can upgrade, right, like in the game, they just feel very, very weak. Like there were a ton of skills I wanted to upgrade in the first game. I didn't get to upgrade them all, but there was a lot left over. Yes, there was some overlap, between skills and augs in game 1. Of course, there are no skills here because why would there be? Skills are great. So there are no skills. There is also some overlap here between your augmentation upgrades, but they're just not very good. Point in this game where I had praxis points left over, there was nothing I really wanted to upgrade. Casey aug, frankly, the boss conversation battles are not hard to do at all. The Casey mod isn't necessary. Yes, it does like add extra secret like dialogue options if you have it, so I guess it's kind of worth it. I think most of like the cranium options aren't very good. The only good hacking is to capture, right? To be able to unlock all the terminals, to control cameras, turrets, that type of thing. And also the stealth option, so you have less a percentage chance of being caught while you're moving around the hacking minigame. Fortify for hacking is absolutely fucking dog shit. I don't know why that exists. And analyze, that should not exist. There is no point to analyze, dude. It doesn't do anything. Those are completely worthless. And that's 5 augmentations right off the bat that you could immediately cut. They don't provide any value. I think some stuff is like fine, like the aiming stuff not super necessary. Like when you're running and gunning, it like reduces that. I don't think that's great. The battery stuff is fine. The lung stuff, I didn't really have a problem. The double takedown, you have so few occasions where you can like double take down enemies. That felt pointless. Like that, yeah, that just feels bad. Being able to break through walls and upgrade your inventory is good. I don't think the eye augmentations are necessary. The Icarus system to prevent fall damage, that's useful. However, I hate the animation that plays. I think it takes way too long just to like land to the fucking ground. It's like stop being cinematic. Just let me like hit the ground, take no damage, and then keep moving. Please, please, please. Upgrading your skin to take less damage, like that was useful. I guess like there's stealth options. Being able to jump high, that was good. But I wasn't really like a stealth player, so I didn't really bother with some of those. A lot of them like aren't great, I don't think. You know what would have made the first game so much better? If you had to waste points to upgrade your inventory space. Like if your inventory wasn't already like a really good size and then you just had to upgrade it. Yeah, the inventory feels like shit. Grenades do not stack. Your ammo takes up space in your inventory. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? I hate that so much. And I didn't care for the inventory at first when I played the original game just because I wasn't used to it. But after playing through it, it's like, you know what? I think this is decent. The grid system, now that I understand it, and like if I place things in a certain way because everything has to fit, it feels pretty good. You also don't get punished for like your little consumables. Again, if you want to pick up like a bunch of 40s in the original game, you can carry a bunch of 40s and they stack. Every little beer or wine or whiskey, whatever, does not stack and it gets its own space. Grenades do not stack, right? It's an inventory slot per grenade. Fuck off with that shit. Inventory was an absolute downgrade. Another thing, the original game, you would gain XP for exploring new areas, like going through events and then you end up in a new room, whatever. You would gain XP for it. I think that's fine to reward players for exploring the map. I don't have an issue with that. In this game, there are ways to bypass hacking. Like if you go around, you explore and you find like a code to a computer or a door, whatever, you can just implement the code. And if you implement the code, the door opens, right? But you don't gain XP. You gain XP for doing the hacking minigame. So even though I hated the hacking minigame, and I know what you're saying, white pill, but you can skip it if you have the code, right? Wouldn't that make it easier? Yes. But there's just this part of me that hates leaving XP on the table. So I basically always did the hacking minigame because it's like, why wouldn't I get points? You get like 10 points for every kill if you're not doing stealth kills, right? Or just knocking enemies out. You get like 30 points for that. But if I can get like 100 points for hacking a terminal versus like killing 10 enemies, yeah, I'm going to hack the terminal even though it pisses me off and the minigame is never like fun or interesting. And overall, I felt like there was like a bunch of things in this game that are just there for you to like hack and it just like fills up time. It's just to pad out the play time. And if you just ignored everything that was optional to hack, the game would be much shorter. I think I took about 40 hours to beat Human Revolution, and the original game was about 40 hours as well, and I was like going around trying to find everything and do all the little secrets, as best as I could for a first like blind playthrough. You had a lot of level variety in the first game. You had these huge open areas, and yes, it did have offices and like tight quarters and plenty of that, but you did have like big areas. This game feels like a shit ton of factories and offices. There are exceptions, and the exceptions are nice, but overall, I would say level variety was extremely lacking. There's no cathedral here. There's no like Area 51 or Liberty Island. And like I know maybe people have some gripes about how Liberty Island is designed, but it's big, it's open. It shows you basically everything the game has to offer. I think it does a good job with that. There's a lot to explore in Liberty Island. There are no mole tunnels or the airport, the naval shipyards and stuff. Like the Paris is fairly open. Like the Air Force Base, yeah. And sure, yeah, I'm not denying that there aren't offices or like enclosed spaces in the first game. You had a healthy balance between like wide open areas and then stuff like that. And in this, it's just like Montreal is the worst example by far, but a bunch of offices, and it got really boring after a while. We are lacking in strong villains, plots, mysteries. Megan is obviously not dead in the beginning intro cutscene. Okay, look, so the beginning intro sequence I'll talk more about in a minute, but it ends with you being like almost killed by one of the tyrants, and then Megan comes in to save you, and then the guy slaps her, and then you see tyrants in the background, and the big one has a guy slung over his shoulder. By seeing that guy slung over his shoulder, you know that people are being taken alive. For the entire intro, you've seen these tyrants just massacring everyone in the facility. Everyone has been killed so far, but now at the end, they're taking prisoners, right? Because they're not like carrying one of their own people over his shoulder. It's not like a mercenary from their side. That's clearly like a lab tech or a civilian, right? It's someone from the lab that they're carrying out. And if they're just dropping bodies, why would they kill somebody and then carry their body away? That doesn't make sense. So I'm sorry, but this is a very obvious reveal, and this isn't a deep mystery. There was at no point that I believe that Megan and her team were actually dead. Just because of that, it's a little too on the nose. And Megan was only slapped and not shot or something in front of you. And then the game was just a little too heavy-handed with it later on, where it's like her entire team had their bodies burned and we couldn't like identify them at all, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, whoa, I wonder if Megan and her team are secretly alive. Like, no shit, they're secretly alive. Which is a huge like quest line for the game. It's the big mystery. Who killed Megan and why? Twist. Megan's alive. It's like, this isn't a twist. This was obvious from the cutscene at the start. And look, I know Adam Jensen doesn't know that the Illuminati exists, and like in the first game, and you don't know exactly like what bot page is on about and if they are the Illuminati or what. But I think you figured out a lot sooner that the Illuminati do exist, and it's not really so much about like this secret society exists, and that is a reveal, right? But that's just one part of the game. It's not like the be-all, end-all mystery. Okay, the Illuminati exist, but the real question is, like, what are we doing? How are you going to shape the future of the entire world? What are we supposed to be shocked by in this game? That Megan's actually alive? That's not a shock. The Illuminati exist? That's not a shock. We already know that they exist because we played the first game. The tyrants look so retarded. They all have those septum rings, and that looks even worse. Even if you got rid of the septum rings, they're retarded looking. They're legitimately very fucking bad looking. None of them are memorable. Take care of him, Barrett. Who remembers that guy? No one. You remember Gunther. You remember Anna Navarre. And you remember Walton Simmons. You absolutely remember those characters. They're good characters. You don't give a fuck about these guys. They're nothing, right? They are nothing to write home about, and you have some uninteresting boss battles with them, and then that's the end. You don't see them again, and they're never mentioned. There's a lot of Easter eggs and nods to the first game to remind you that that was a better game, right? You'll hear, like, the original soundtrack. You'll like come across emails from characters that appeared in the first game. And you're like, wow, that game had interesting characters. This one really doesn't. This is not a good game or a starting point to the series. If you only play this and never the original game, you really miss out. You absolutely missed out. I only played the original like 2 months ago, right? But it was great. I loved it. And then Invisible War and now this. And I've already started Mankind Divided, and I'll have even more to bitch about with them. We have bad endings. We have, frankly, horrifically bad endings to this game. They are embarrassing. I hated Invisible War very much. I would honestly say that Invisible War put more effort into their endings than Human Revolution put into their endings. And that's very sad. All of that complaining and gnashing of teeth out of the way, we can now like dive into the meat of the game and just start breaking it down level by level. Those are my main reasons. And it's a long list of things that are wrong. Like, yes, some of the graphics did look good. Yes, I enjoyed some of the combat. I don't like that it's like partially a cover shooter. I think cover shooters are dog shit. You know what? Story and character, that really matters. If I have a shitty story and an uninteresting mystery and boring characters, I'm not really into it, you know? And it's like, all right, I'm playing a prequel. It can't really excite me like an original title could. And worst of all, a Canadian studio made it. Actually, a French-Canadian studio made this game. Eidos Montreal. What's French-Canadian for a game studio fucked up game series you really enjoy?
I wonder what's French-Canadian for. I grew up without a mother. Sacre bleu! Where is me, mama?
I'm sorry for the long intro, but I just want to list everything that I have a gripe with. It's a serious downgrade compared to the original. Yes, I know the graphics aren't as good, but the original is 100% worth playing. This is bullshit, and anyone that tells you this is as good as the original can go fuck themselves. Let's begin. I'm going to go off notes I took while I was playing, and yeah, we're going level by level. Our intro is overall very slow compared to the first game. You don't get to do things or make choices for a really long time. I hate Megan telling you to hurry it up because you're taking too long to explore the world. And it's like, why am I being punished for wanting to explore and look at the world? This feels very contradictory to like how Deus Ex was, you know, you're supposed to explore, take your time, play it your way. And in this game, it really wants you to hurry up. And while we are told to really hurry it up, you have a slow ass walk with Megan that you cannot skip. You can't skip this, and it's very slow and boring. In the first game, you got your character creation screen, you got a short intro, and then the game. Not here. Oh no, not here. Let's talk body language just for a minute. But our intro has us once we leave the office after Megan bitches at us to leave because we're taking too much time to read and learn about the world. We have two white guys prostrate themselves before Dr. Reed. They kind of bow, they lower themselves. Again, just watch the footage yourself. Look at the body language. You know, they're in fear and awe of the all-powerful Dr. Reed. You will note, however, that while we had our two white men lower themselves before Dr. Reed, our black female scientist does not do that. We have a Russian male scientist who does not lower himself as well, but still, two of the white guys do. I feel like that's a little deliberate, but that's just me. A lot of talking, like we don't get to move around or be in control at all, and there's no way to skip this. I started the New Game Plus, and then I just stopped. You get to keep your augmentations if you start a New Game Plus. You cannot skip the intro walk sequence. It's very gay. I had like a shadow Bob page talking to some people about, you know, blah, blah, blah. Our machinations are happening. Eliza Cassan is a reporter. We used to date Dr. Reed. We're with Sarif Industries. We're Adam Jensen, ex-SWAT cop, you know, turned private security. And then we go out to our boss, David Sarif's office, and then the lab is under attack. I did like this, at least. This was better than Invisible War, where it just implemented codes for you. That sucked. this is something, right, where you get to punch in the codes yourself. I think that's important to do. You know, it adds something for the player. So then we have to run through the lab. There's these huge guys running around, killing a bunch of people. We get like a basics in game mechanics, like opening event, crouching, shooting, basic intro, right? And yeah, you can't really pick anything up or do much. I like the little training sequence in the first game. It's just like you select it from the main menu, you can play it. It takes, 15, 20 minutes, right? And then you get the basics of the game. And then when you start the first mission, you do character selection, right? You fill out some like skills that you want. And then you're in. You get to make choices. You just have this big cutscene that you can't skip. And then you're just railroaded for the first mission. The huge augmented guy destroys you. And then, Megan Reed got slapped. And then that's our intro 6 months later. We never went to Washington. Oh, yeah, Megan was going to be forced to present her research before some committee in Washington, D.C., and you got attacked just before you're about to head out there. We still have sunglasses in this game. It's too futuristic for me. It's stupid sliding sunglasses. Very gay. In the future, right, in 2052, we do not have sliding sunglasses. Would it be such a big deal if you have just a regular pair of sunglasses? I don't know. It feels gimmicky. I don't love it. I took my time walking around Sarif Industries, even though there was some break-in at a factory of Sarif Industries. I was taking my time. I was exploring things. I was going through the offices. Something that I noticed that's just a part of the background is it's a very diverse company here at Sarif Industries. It's a ton of black people from what I saw. They're talking about this group Purity First, and they're claiming the attack on the Milwaukee base is them, and you can go around and talk to people. They're like, Jensen, how you doing? Oh my god, Jensen, you're back. It's been 6 months. Everyone just keeps saying Megan is dead over and over again. Yeah, there's no way that she's dead. People have just said it too many times for it to be real. I think if there was a more convincing fake out in the intro, you saw one of the times shoot Megan, fake shot her, but it looked real. I could believe that, but just slapping her and then you pass out and they have the guy over the shoulder. Yeah, I don't buy it. Pritchard is the IT tech support guy. He doesn't like us. He blames us for the incident 6 months ago. We do have a callback to the original game. I actually didn't hate this, but since I was exploring every inch of the place, I did wind up in the ladies' restroom, and I got told off for going to the ladies' restroom, just like the original game. You get XP for exploring vents. I think this is okay. I don't know. I think maybe this game relies on vents too much, especially compared to the original. Vents were there, but this game, it seems it just has vents to get around as extra means. And it feels like the XP for just walking around vents was a little too freely given, right? Where in the original, you would have to enter huge different rooms that maybe had nothing to do with the main quest, right? But they were just extra rooms where here's some loot, thanks for exploring and seeing more of the map. We have our pilot, Farida Malik. I assumed at first that she was an angry Muslim pilot. I'm not 100% sure, but while I'm walking around, Sarif is getting really angry with me over the radio, telling me, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And I'm I don't give a shit. I'm playing at my own speed. That's what Deus Ex is about. Play it your way. But eventually, I make it to the helipad, and I go aboard. Supposedly, some pro-human purists killed 8 hostages, but Josie Thorpe may be alive at the Sarif plant. I question if the hostages were all dead because of my delay, or if that was just some story bit and the hostages were always dead. No. It absolutely matters if you walk slow and take your time. I did replay this section where I rescued the hostages because you actively get punished for taking your time and going slow. From what I remember, there's no part of the original Deus Ex game that is time sensitive. There's nothing that you can fail. I don't even think the missile silo mission has it to where you can fail if you take too long, right? Obviously, it kind of wants you to go faster, but I think you could really take as much time as you want without triggering a game over. You actively get told to play a certain way. And yes, you can explore Sarif HQ once you get back, but I don't like it. I don't like it forcing it like this. It makes sense at a part later on with Malik, but it doesn't really make sense here, especially not for a first mission, right? That left a very bad taste in my mouth for Deus Ex, the game where it's like, yeah, solve this mission however the hell you want, right? You weren't punished at Liberty Island like, you took too slow, they killed the hostages in Gunther. That would suck. As I said, I did go back and replay it just to save the hostages to see what would happen. It was fine. I do resent being forced to play a certain way. This is something I noticed with my inventory, and maybe I was just being a retard with it. The game would not let me scroll over and just like select my grenade. I could only like throw my grenade with the G button. I don't know why that is. You select the grenade and you throw it, I guess. That felt like an annoying change. Like, what the fuck was the point of that? So you get dropped in, you're supposed to like go into this plant, save the hostages, and like secure the typhoon system and defeat the Purity First guys. A SWAT team is there, they're pissed off at you, you're going in alone. The head of SWAT is black. The game feels fine. I don't think the combat's bad or anything. While I disliked it at first, it made sense to me with like the aiming down the sights in the first game. It's slow. I honestly think a lot of like Zoomers in Gen Alpha don't have the attention span or the patience to like take it slow. While this, yeah, you can get like wrecked if you like run across a room or just go in guns blazing, but it is like a faster, like more action-paced game. Purity First, there are bad guys, right? And they believe that augmentations are bad and destructive, and you find their little manifesto here. It tells you to basically embrace yourself. Are you tired of seeing half-human cyborgs taking jobs and opportunities from good people? We don't get to see really concrete examples of this in-game. It would have made the anti-augmentation argument a lot stronger if we got to see that. Maybe I missed it, but I don't think that's true. Are you sick of cogs who mutilate and debase themselves? It's like, that's a fair point, right? If it became like a fetish or like trendy for people to like just cut off perfectly healthy limbs and replace them with machines, that would be disgusting and like weird. And yeah, there should be people calling that out. Physical limitations are what make us human. We should not strive to be anything else. And I do agree that physical limitations are what make us human. If you just like keep digitizing people and trying to make them more perfect, more efficient, etc., you're just turning people into robots and then eventually just like computers, right? Because if you just replace your brain with a computer, then why wouldn't you just like basically download yourself into a virtual world if you can just explore and do everything virtually? I think it is like ultimately self-destructive to go on this path of like digitalization of people. So I like Purity First. I agree with them. They're supposed to be the bad guys, of course. So naturally I side with them. I did start out like doing stealth options, but I quickly abandoned that because I wasn't having a good time with it. It felt like there was like a shit ton of ammo, like a mountain of ammo compared to like stealth options. And like just overall, like a lot of bad guys. Like definitely compared to like Liberty Island, it felt like there's a shit ton of bad guys to take out here. Like I think there's a decent amount at Liberty Island, but because that's like a slower paced game and I don't think like as action focused, it could definitely be like action focused in certain parts. And I don't like love the experience for getting kills here. This feels wrong for me because you get like 30 points for doing a takedown and you get 10 points for just killing someone normally with guns. There's no melee options in this game. You can't like, there are no melee weapons or anything like that. I think that sucks. That like, why? You get like the Typhoon system. I don't think I ever used this in my playthrough. It just, I don't know. It just seemed like overkill and just not necessary at all. So I never bothered with it. I feel like somewhat punished where it's like, oh, I should get more stealth kills because I get 3 times the amount of XP for it. Somewhat encourages certain playstyles over others, and I know you can choose to do what you want, but the XP, right, that is now a factor where I don't think it should be a factor. You also get a mini-map in this game, which was not necessary in the original game. Somehow you were able to move around a big map without a mini-map telling you where enemies are and all that bullshit, and you get this little axe, and the little axe tells you where to go. I don't love it. I guess like mini-maps are okay to find, but don't like manage to work without a mini-map. And I think like, yeah, that is like pretty common with like more modern games since like it will really hold your hand. and tell you like exactly where to go. And here's where all the bad guys are, you know, even though like you hear them around the corner, you see them moving around, like you should be able to handle it without it. I don't think there's an option to like turn that off. Oh, I got to a point where this turret in this hallway was giving me a lot of trouble. Turns out that there's a vent there, but it's blocked by a bunch of boxes. That's a really fun thing that this game does. It blocks a shit ton of vents with just boxes, just infinite boxes. And they're always blocking all the fucking vents. Had a great time with that. And then you get a cinematic cutscene where you run into the Purity First hacker. The guy asks for help before he's killing himself. There's nothing that we can do here. Like, there's no way to, like, stealth take this guy out or to bring him down or something. You have to walk up to the door and then he has to kill himself. There's no other way to play it. Oh, another reason why I switched over from stealth to just being a normal combat guy is my batteries from Melee recharge slow as fuck. And just wasn't having a lot of fun with it. Here is our first like little political jab from the developers that am I making a mountain out of a molehill here? Possibly. That's up for you to decide. In this game, we have a lot of beers that you can collect. They work like the first game. You drink them, they regain health. Like you can get a little like damage resistance, and it also blurs your vision for a short period of time, right? However, we do have one beer. This is the Maharaja Hot Devil Ale. I'm going to read the description to you. The British gave much to India, over 200 years of economic plundering, over 100 years of forced colonial rule, famines, rebellions, and ... beer. What the devil? That's Maharaja Hot Devil Sahib. We're anti-British here. We're specifically like anti-British Empire because imperialism, colonialism is bad. And damn the British for what they did to those Indians, right? This isn't here by accident. This was a very deliberate choice by the developers to put this in the game. And why is this a big deal, White Pill Media? Why does that matter? The game does not really give a shit about imperialism or that type of thing. It cares about the British being in India because the British are white. It does not care about like other groups of people invading India and subjecting them because they're not white. The game, if it chose to, could have made a beer label about the Muslims conquering India because that's what happened to India. Muslims like started to arrive in India, I think it was around like the 8th century, and they didn't really get kicked out until like the 18th century where like some like regional kingdoms started to take power and then British colonial rule happened. But we're essentially talking for parts of India, not all of India all at once, but like, I don't know, a period close to like 1,000 years or so. I'm not an expert on it, but this is just going off some things I looked up. Would have been about like 1,000 years, 800 years, where India was subjected to Muslim rule. The Taj Mahal in India, that's a Muslim building. Right? That was not built by or for Indians, and I think like there's some Indian nationalists that hate the Taj Mahal because it's a sign of Muslim imperial rule over them. Talking about like 800 years, 1,000 years of Muslim rule. For the British East India Trading Company, they started trading in India around 1700 from what I can tell, and then the like British colonial rule stopped at like 1947. But I wouldn't say, and I think most people would agree, that the East India Trading Company wasn't like ruling India or like making laws and just like kind of being the de facto government until like the mid 19th century, so like the mid 1800s. So you could say they were kind of, the British were ruling things in India for roughly a period of about 100 years or so, compared to the 800 or your 1,000. If you were to look it up, you would find a nonstop stream of people saying, actually, the Muslim invasion of India was super peaceful and calm compared to what those whites did, you know, to Indians in America or anywhere else on the planet. Wherever white people enforced colonial rule, it was bad, horrible, atrocity, etc., etc. I'm sure there were some atrocities and such, but of course, when it's like non-whites colonizing other non-whites or even non-whites attacking white people, it's always downplayed, or actually it's good. Colonization wasn't like a turnkey operation. Like economic plundering, what do you mean by that? Like the British had to set up so much infrastructure and stability, and I think like for the most part, the British Empire was largely unprofitable, and they spent a shit ton of money maintaining these colonies. I think the ones where like they made money back was like South Africa, because you had a lot of white colonial farmers there. America, right? Again, whites. And then like Canada and like New Zealand and like Australia. I think those were like the profitable ones. And India might have been profitable, but like you have to build things like roads and other infrastructure, and you have to maintain this empire. And another thing which I just love that the British started to put a stop to, because this was just a nice native practice. And of course, browns are so noble compared to us savage whites, but there's this practice in India known as sati. This is also known as widow burning. And it's like if a husband dies, the wife would jump on her husband's funeral pyre and burn herself alive. And the British tried to put a stop to that. Shame on the British for enforcing their white heteronormative worldview on these Indians who are oh so above us all. If there's one thing I know about Muslims, is that 1, Islam is the religion of peace. 2, they commit a lot of fucking violence wherever they go, right? They commit a lot of violence wherever the hell they go. And from what I've looked up online, if you get past like the Reddit and the leftist bullshit, it seems like the Muslims were pretty goddamn oppressive towards the Indians, and they killed a fuck ton of them. The thing with like Pakistan and India to this day, that wasn't like the British Empire's fault. It was, here are these Muslims who have been oppressing these Indians for a really long time, and these people really fucking hate each other, and the British would just try to like calm everything down and keep them segregated so that there wouldn't be like widespread violence between these groups. I don't know a lot about it, but from what I've looked up online, it seems like there were a shit ton of massacres that the Muslims did to the Indians. But of course, there's not a beer label condemning Muslim rule in India, which lasted far longer than British rule in India. But whatever. Is that a mountain out of a molehill? Perhaps, but it's very fucking annoying when it's just like, yeah, fuck you, British Empire. It's like, for what? For stopping the practice of widow burning? For telling Indians, like, don't lick cow shit as a part of your religion? For telling Indians, like, don't drink rat milk?
These are my family. I am family, belong to Buddhist family person. I death, next month become the grass.
And so this milk, you drink this and it's good for health?
Yes, good for health. I can just and this is very holy milk. We are come here in this milk. Drink, no problem. You know what it is?
You know, when I think of Indians, I think hygienic. That's the first thought that comes to my mind when I think of Indians. I think, God, they're hygienic people. So yeah, that was a lot about a singular item description in the game, but fuck these developers. I am not typically a defender of the Anglos, but you're goddamn right, I'm going to jump in to defend them here. And you could say, White Pill, this isn't a big deal. If it's not a big deal, then why not attack the Muslim Empire alongside the British Empire if that's what you want to do? Why is it always an attack on whites and never an attack on anyone else? Seriously, would you be upset if there was just a sign in the game that just said, fuck white people? Like, why does that upset you? You know, this is just a beer label. Why would you be upset about a sign that just said, like, yeah, fuck white people? It's a part of the game. The developers put that in there. Fuck them. The game just has a lot of little jabs like that. Why just lay down and take it? That's my spurging out about the Indian people. And now we can continue with the rest of the video. And then at the end, we confront Zeke, who has taken Josie hostage. You have your first boss dialogue battle here. Basically, I talk this guy down and let him go because, I don't know, he hates augmented people. And I think that's really cool. So I let him go. Maybe that was a mistake. The cops are really pissed at you that you let him walk away. I think, like, the cops overall are, like, mean to you from what I saw online. Like, if you're too violent with the Purity First guys or whatever, they're like upset with you. Like, did you have to kill so many? It's like, these guys are terrorists who took a bunch of hostages if you're too slow, they kill the hostages, and they're like actively in gun battles with the police. Yes, I had the right to shoot them all. You know, like they're not here with pop guns. So that was annoying. You had like Paul Denton criticizing you in the first game for killing too many people. Also Sam Carter. While the people of UNATCO are encouraging you to, yeah, kill them all, JC. And that's a nice like little counter thing. It doesn't quite work here. And Pritchard does give a line like, if you kill a bunch of people, you are Attila the Hun. If you didn't, then you're Mahatma Gandhi. And now we're back to Detroit. We have William Taggart, who is an author, and he renounces terrorism. Because he renounces terrorism, you know that he's secretly a bad guy. Hologram tech is here and present in this world. It was barely present in the first game, you know, and it didn't look good. But we have multiple examples in this game where hologram tech is so amazing that people mistake the holograms for like real life. And Sarif, he puts us on the job to go to examine the corpse because the cops are not being cooperative. Outside, Detroit is big. It's still like too futuristic with like the hanging trains and all that, and some of the architecture I don't think quite works, but you can explore a lot. It's a shame I don't really care about the world, and while it is bigger, I don't know, it also feels like there's somewhat less going on. The thing with hacking that I hate is in the original game, right? If you just manage to cobble together enough multi-tools or lockpicks, you could go behind like a super secure, tough to get to place or door, right? In this game, you're completely locked out unless you have like the required capture level. There's no way around it. There are automatic hacking devices, but those are, I don't think, super common. I didn't really use them, but it just felt like really bad that you would just be locked out of potential content because you don't have like the correct amount of praxis points put into hacking. And I avoided putting points into hacking for a long time just because it pissed me off. You know, like I hated the mini game. It felt really stupid. And with how many augmentation slots hacking took up by itself, yeah, it pissed me off. But eventually I would upgrade it to level 5 just to make sure I wouldn't miss out on like any lockers or terminals or that type of thing. And I would say the atmosphere is better. It is so much better than Invisible War, which is like way too fucking futuristic. It feels grim and grimy here. It's not quite right like the first game, but you have like street gangs, you have whores. It's dirty. It's kind of gross. It's like, yeah, this is Deus Ex. We have some side missions with people stealing neuropozyne. Oh, yeah. So neuropozyne, people who get augs, they all have to take neuropozyne because if they don't, their body will reject their augmented limbs. So people have to spend a fuck ton of money on their neuropozyne supplements. Otherwise, they're just screwed, right? We have some guys, Corella and Lindell, they're stealing neuropozyne, and one of the guys is trying to blackmail the other one because he refuses to steal more, and the other guy's giving it away for free. So I did that side quest. We have Megan's mother who wants an investigation, and Adam Jensen even goes like, it just seems too perfect, you know, that there's no way to identify the bodies and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, Megan's alive. Like, you're laying it on like a little too thick. I think maybe if like the Megan's mother side quest came later, that would have been better. But you've done too much at the start where it's like, okay, I 100% know Megan must be alive. Some of the NPCs have some like interesting or all right dialogue as you go by. A black woman made a good point about like what happens to normal humans now. You know, if everyone's getting augmented, what happens to those left behind? Woman with a mohawk said I used to be pretty.
Why did you do it? You were beautiful just the way you were.
There's some people who regret augmentation. And while like the punks in this game, they're anti-augmentation, right? They are presented as kind of ugly and crass and crude. I think that the Augs Live Matter crowd will not be shown in this light in Mankind Divided. And I could not believe that Augs Lives Matter was a real thing. but I'm so happy that it is, and I can't wait to talk about Mankind Divided. Yeah, I don't think that crowd is going to be portrayed as ugly or crass. And you can purchase Praxis upgrades. I like this. I always did this, like 5,000. That felt correct, but ultimately not a ton of upgrades that I really wanted. Like, there were some initial ones that I wanted, like being able to break down walls, so you have access to hidden rooms and that type of thing. That's useful. And yeah, like resist electricity, poison gas, hacking stuff, no fall damage. A bald woman pities me.
You were human once. Beautiful. Why did you do it? You poor man.
Bitch about beer not stacking. How neat. Why does the ammo take 2 fucking slots or any space at all? What an improvement over the original game. I found like this construction area with like hundreds of gangsters. I've killed hundreds of gangsters, right? And then there were also like mines here. Mines are not like lambs. You cannot walk up and disable them if you're fast enough. They just blow up and fucking kill you. So be careful about that. You can throw stuff at them to trigger them. And then I disabled a small satellite. Sarif and Pritchard contacts me, and it's like, I don't know what you did, but you did something. I'm like, okay, sure. Speaking of inventory, I like how massive my handgun is in my inventory. Like, that makes sense. Like, it's huge. It takes up so many fucking slots. That's just perfect, right? My handgun takes up the space of, like, stacks, ammo, or beer or whiskey. Like, the inventory already isn't like super realistic, but you just had to like make it more gay. Also in the subway, we have a white woman and her black boyfriend. I really like Human Revolution. It's a game for me. It's for gamers. There's that corrupt cop, and after I killed like 1,000 gangsters, I now have to head back to that place to plant a fucking gun. Great. You don't get to move like fridges or dumpsters without an upgrade. The dumpsters literally have wheels. I literally see the wheels, and you cannot move the goddamn dumpster without an upgrade. And oh no, I would never be able to move a fridge, me as a non-augmented human, without a goddamn strength upgrade. It's stupid. It doesn't make sense. There's like some connection between O'Malley and FEMA. Jenny, the black cop who is posing as a street whore. All the street whores look like strangely futuristic in their outfits. They're whores, but hey, it's the future. Helping her like take down O'Malley because he's a corrupt cop. And then at the police station where we're supposed to go, there was an event that happened 2 years ago that led to Adam Jensen leaving the SWAT team. Augmented kid. Jensen refused to take the shot while this guy didn't. He had to do it. This guy gets like way too emotional for me in such a public place. Like, yeah, it's a boss battle, and maybe this guy like went through something horrible. I mean, he shot a kid, right? That's something that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. In this setting, I don't think this quite works. Like, Adam, can we go talk somewhere more private? I mean, like, sure. And then he like opens up a bit. That would make sense. But like, there's a lot of people around. There are a few paths into the cop station, like through the sewers, through like a window, and then I think there are 2 window paths you can take, like multiple floors, and then through the front way, like sneaking in or talking that guy into letting you through. So I did like that. I did like explore the station. You have some cops in the basement talking about RoboCop, and this game feels like more Blade Runner. It also feels like anime-ish. Like, it definitely has more of a Japanese feel to it, but the guys mentioned RoboCop, and it's sort of an amalgamation of all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, we're technically in the Deus Ex world, but no, it doesn't really fit to me. There's an email where Joseph Manderley is mentioned, and you, as like the soy Redditor, are supposed to like squeal because, whoa, they reference Joseph Manderley. He's from the first game, and he's mentioned here. Amazing. More emails of Manderley about like shooting down an investigation. After I did all the police station stuff, I went to my apartment building, the sheriff building. There was some 9/11 talk here. The receptionist is a liar, and apparently I broke my mirror, and the mirror is there, and it's like in the warehouse. It's been there for weeks. So I guess she hates Augs. Good woman. She doesn't want him here. When you enter your apartment, and I know people wax on and on about Adam Jensen's apartment, and it tells so much about his character, and it does, right? When you enter your apartment, the blinds open, and it's really like Blade Runner, right? It looks just like Blade Runner, and it's like, yes, that's true. That's very cool. You have him like all those clock bits. You have the broken mirror in the bathroom, like after seeing himself being augmented, he smashed the mirror. It does a lot of things well visually. I don't think it's done bad, but when you hear people just like gush and gush and gush about it, it's like, I think this was fine. This wasn't like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But like, I think it's decent. Speaking of like those 1,000 gangsters that I killed, we have the MCB bangers. You have legitimate criminals. A lot of these guys had augmentations who use these powers to abuse and harm normal people. Just their existence is a strong reason why Augs should be regulated so that just criminal people can't spend their money on ill-gotten Augs so then they can more efficiently commit criminal acts. That's bullshit. Another thing. So, in this game, it's the big augmentation questions if Augs should be unregulated or regulated. That's the basic points. And the conservatives / the right wing are portrayed as the regulation crowd. The left wing wants augmented people to be free and without government oversight or control. What a joke. In real life, if I can make a real life comparison, who is the crowd that is very, very pro gun control and doesn't think really anyone should have a firearm, right? And constantly wants to limit what you can own? It's the left wing, right? I know Ronald Reagan is a faggot and he banned machine guns and he did a lot of other things that I hate, but it's typically a left wing talking point. They want gun control. But somehow, magically, in this world, when people can get like machine gun hands, the left wing would be super pro people having machine gun hands, but me owning like a literal machine gun, that should be regulated. This doesn't make sense. The game is a little confused in what it wants. If anything, there would be like a shit ton of left wing people that would be very pro regulation. And then we go to check out the signal that we found. It leads to this underground FEMA internment camp. There's a lot of heavy Augs there. We have this newspaper on FEMA. They mention the NSF, and these guys want the Pacific Northwest to secede. I don't think it was making a reference to like the Pacific Northwest Front. Look that up if you want. But I don't think that's what they're doing. But I guess I'll find out in Mankind Divided if they like play them up, because Pacific Northwest Front was like a white separatist group. I don't think they're really active anymore, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I don't think the NSF is supposed to be portrayed as bad guys. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just a coincidence. Anyways, so we're in like this FEMA camp, and yeah, at this point, my HUD vanished. Like my inventory was just gone. I thought like, oh, the game's being cinematic right now. No. It's just a super common bug, and apparently with the director's cut, they just never fixed it. So hooray. You can like save and come back, and that usually fixes it. Sometimes not, and I just learned to play without it, and it just went fine. There's a long as fuck elevator sequence of you traveling down, and you see like all this FEMA shit going on, and then I accidentally pressed the button to go back up, so there's this huge wait, so I ended up just saving and loading to go back to the bottom because that's retarded. But that's just me. Fuck me. I managed to upgrade my inventory to full, and it's like shit barely fits. Like, fuck me, this is so dumb. You got to carry so much more shit. I don't know if that's true. Maybe if I did side by side, but it feels like just not having ammo take up so many spaces, and just having grenades stack, and yeah, I feel like you had like a lot more inventory space, a lot more variety in your inventory too in the first game. There's a list of people you find that are to be arrested under martial law. I don't know if that's important. And then we have our first boss battle. This huge guy hits me from behind. We kill Barrett. He has a nose ring. He tells us to go to Shanghai. It's kind of dumb that the only lead that we have is from like a bad guy who just tried to murder us, and he tells us to go to Shanghai. He could have said any place in the world just to screw with us. But we just take it on faith, and then it's correct that we are supposed to go to Shanghai. I don't know. That feels like a very, very weak plot point to me. Overall, the tyrants, they just look stupid. Like, not intimidating. The septum rings are horrible. You want your villains to look cool and intimidating and compelling. Boba Fett, he just looks cool, right? Darth Vader, he looks very cool. Like the mouth of Sauron in the Lord of the Rings movies, he looks very fucking cool and intimidating, and he's a villain. These guys just look really generic. This one has like the metal arms, and he's really big. And because I think there's no character to them, I think there's like some mobile game called The Fall, which I did not play and have no intention of playing, that like fleshes them out a little bit. But if you got rid of the nose rings, they're a bit better, but I still think they're shitty villains. So then we go back to Sarif Industries. There was an interesting book called The Sleepwalking World that talks about the Illuminati being the secret masters of the planet, talking about an ancient secret society controlling humanity. This is not fiction, this is a fact. Yeah, that's fine. And at this point, I went around and opened all the doors at Sarif, and there's this spot outside, like around the helicopter pad that I opened up. There's some decent loot down there. Sarif apparently created the backdoor access, which is the like antenna satellite thing that we shut down to the place. Taggart is upstairs in the penthouse. Taggart tries to rile you up, but he also brings up some good points. I'll play that.
But it must have been stressful facing down a second incident so soon. I imagine it brought back all kinds of unpleasant memories. This enhancement technology threatens to change the course of human evolution, to redefine what it even means to be human. You think governments can afford to let that go unregulated?
Sandoval, who is like Taggart's aide, talks about crazy guy, and turns out that his brother was Zeke from the first mission. In the little confrontation with Sarif is completely unconvincing here. He's trying to make us doubt ourselves, calls us a failure. He also calls us son a couple of times. He mentions Megan, asks if we want to see that data that he found. Turns out that Adam Jensen was adopted under suspicious circumstances. And then, yeah, I can walk out of here onto the streets of Detroit, which I thought was like nice. I thought that was pretty cool. There's a lot of talk from the pro-augmentation side about self-controlled evolution. I don't think that's true, man. I think that is like hopelessly naive. I think that's the destruction of humanity. I think that's corporation mechanizing your body to make you a more efficient, like, labor productive tool for them, and they can like shut your body down when they want. And I don't know, it just feels like insanely dystopic to just mechanize yourself like that. And the game tries to portray it as like freedom and such. You'll have people say like, my body, my choice. They're comparing augmentation to like abortion, right? And it's really not, it's not comparable at all. And it just feels like somewhat tone deaf from the developers, because it's like, who is the side that really wants regulation for guns? The left. But the left is also super pro, completely anti-regulation for any augmentations when you have a fuck ton of criminal gangs with augmented limbs. It doesn't make sense. We're to go to Hengsha. It tells us that we have to do any unfinished side quests here. So I'm glad that like it warns you, at least like, hey, if you get on here, no more side quests. So I finished all my side quests. I think they're all done at this point. And then I got on the plane to Hengsha. It does not fit the world of Deus Ex. It's a huge city that is literally 2 layers. I don't believe this at all. It doesn't fit the world. It looks good. Like Hengsha and running around in it, it looks good. I like the feel and the atmosphere, but frankly, for as big as it is, there's really not a lot of content to do here. There's a couple layers to the streets, and yeah, like it's bigger. The sewers are very empty. Like the sewers in Detroit were also empty. It seems like they saved the sewers to have content in them for Detroit Round 2 and also Hengsha Round 2. People say that to like rise in society here, it requires aug, so that's a good argument against augmentation. There's prostitutes here and a side quest with them. I was just basically running around. Like there's like a bunch of storage units to hack. You can explore the sewers. You can go into all the various shops and sometimes the back rooms will have like loot in them. The original like Hong Kong and Deus Ex, it's like smaller and tighter, created an atmosphere with like the size that it had. And this does also create an atmosphere with its size, but I don't think it flexes its size appropriately. If you're limited on content for Hengsha, which is okay, right? If it's a smaller level, then just make it smaller, because now it just feels like I'm running around these frankly big empty streets without too much to do. The Alice Garden pods is this huge place where people literally live in pods. There's a woman here who wants some escorts evicted based. The pods are like tiny as shit. There's people talking about Tong. This is not our Tong. And I will admit, I will be upfront with you all, I got Tong's dad confused with Tracer Tong for a minute. I did figure it out when we saw Tracer Tong, but yes, I was confused, and I'm like, that's Tong? That doesn't look like Tong. He's like really old here. What the fuck? That's just me being dumb, but yes, this is Tong's father, not Tong. And there's a point where I don't know when, but I looked up. I just happened to look up, and I'm going to admit, for all my bitching and griping about this game, I was impressed. Just seeing the underside of the city layer above you, you have like jets and planes and shit moving around. I was legitimately very impressed. It was beautiful to look at, but still, while it was pretty, I don't love the game. I don't care about the story or really our characters. So having good graphics will never save a game for me, ever. That has never happened. That will never happen. Graphics can't make up for like good gameplay or characters or plot. I'd say the sewers feel the worst overall. There's like nothing down there in Hengsha. And then there's the Hive. And the Hive has like this harvester gang, and these guys just like hunt down augmented people and like rip their augmented limbs off to sell them. Really nice people. These guys work for Tong's dad. And there's like a guy at the front that said like, if you want work, talk to the bartender. So I talked to the bartender. He would not like give me a quest or anything. I could not find Tong anywhere in the Hive building. I even went downstairs. I went to Tong's door, like his office door. You were not able to hack his door. It doesn't matter what your capture level is. The game prevents you from going in there until like you speak with Tong later on. That is such bullshit. That is so goddamn limiting. The point of Deus Ex, right, was supposed to be player choice, player freedom, player decision, and you're telling me that I'm not able to hack into this door when I've been able to hack into every other door because, like, the cinematic experience hasn't fucking caught up with me yet? Fuck off. So yeah, I can't find Tong, and then someone said that Tong was like a bartender, but it's actually a woman. And yeah, I can't open his office on my own, so now I'm just really bored and kind of pissed off. I ran into some bell tower guys. They are not killed instantly by headshots, and I did favor my 10mm pistol, but like all of the guns feel pretty good. The double barrel shotgun was dog shit, so I dropped that almost immediately as soon as I picked it up. But yeah, I would say the rest of the guns feel pretty good. You do have weapon mods like the first game. Those feel fine, right? You can buy some of them or find them around the map. Like, I enjoyed that, at least. Yeah, I'm still not happy about the lack of skills. I'm like just searching random apartments. I did find revolver ammo and a toaster in a tub. There was some interesting manga in a guy's closet. And then now that I've progressed a bit with the main quest, there's now this old guy as a bartender that looks messed up, and oh my god, the bartender with the super unique model was actually Tong, and we had a boss convo battle with him. No way. The guy that looks really detailed compared to everyone else. It's like anime protagonist versus like anime NPC in the background. That's what Tong looks like. I'm like, I was a cop? I should kill myself that I didn't immediately know that this was Tong. I think maybe if you have your dumb fuck Casey mod, you'll be able to like, oh my god, you're Tong. It's like, how are you shocked by this? He's obviously Tong. Go down to Tong's office, which you can now enter, by the way. The game has decided you are allowed to explore now. So talk with him. He tells us about this guy in the Alice pods, but I went back to deal with like that prostitute side quest where we have to like rescue this girl who like her pimps like want her to get augmented. So but here's the thing, because I like took out one guy in like the whore building before, now like the main pimp guy is hostile to me, and every time I try to take him out, May freaks the fuck out and won't talk to me because she's panicked. So I kept saving and reloading. I spent way too much time here. Way too much fucking time. That's all me. That's all my fault. Like, I would shoot him in the back of the head. That failed because she panicked. I mean, it works when the Clintons do it, but magically it doesn't work for me. Whatever. I tried multiple times, and I'm like, okay, if I just try to finish the quest and I like talk to her, hopefully I'll get her to run through her entire dialogue as I'm being shot so I can just finish the quest. That never worked. Me chugging a bunch of painkillers and health items and then talking to her as I'm being shot would not work. Every time I died, I would like fall down and get like a semi-panty shot, which I was not planning on that, by the way. I'm not a pervert. It just happened. That's where the camera went. And there's no way to skip her dog shit dialogue, and I got really stuck on this quest. There was some OG soundtrack on the radio, which is cool. Nothing was working. Yeah, I took 2 painkillers to try and live. It won't work. I had to come back. What dog shit. I felt like I was moving incredibly slow during a certain part of this level. It turns out I was. If you hit caps lock, this does that. I thought I was going crazy, and I was like, what the fuck, this piece of shit game. I can't finish this fucking side quest. And now I'm walking slow. If you hit caps lock, you just start like crawling for no reason. So you have to hit caps lock to stop crawling. And so the bartender side quest at the Hive was to collect money from this female bookie who doesn't want to pay anymore. And Jaya now magically appears in an apartment I had raided before. Yeah, I don't know, like, would it have been such a big deal if I like hacked into that apartment before and then I encountered Jaya and then like, hey, she like tasks me with like stopping the harvesters from coming after her, and then I could speak to the bartender, and then he gives me his side of the story and lets me, and he gives me an option to fulfill the quest a different way. But of course not. Now I have to go back to this apartment I've already been to. Some advice for finishing this side quest is don't take her augment. If you take her augment, you won't get your reward. Jaya ain't that innocent to me. Like, she got involved with a criminal organization to get this upgrade. Look, if you lay down with the dogs, you get fleas. I don't think she's this innocent girl that had no idea what she was doing. She knew she was going to the harvester. She knew that these are very, very fucking bad criminal people you don't want to be involved with. She got what she wanted here. I finished that. I got like a praxis kit. That was cool. And then, yeah, back to Mai. Nothing was working with Mai. I wasted some more time like trying to figure that shit out because Mai is standing in the room next to like her pimp and they will not move. They are like just like fucking frozen there. And I'm like, if he would just move, I could shoot him with a silencer or take him out without Mai looking, and then I could just finish the quest, but that wasn't working. Oh, there's another side quest with Malik. This is the personal business side quest. Her sister was killed years ago, and she wants us to like find out who the murderer was. She thinks it was her sister's boyfriend. The mysterious hacker who was talking to the guy who was raiding like Sarif Industries in the first mission is Van Bruggen Windmill. He's black. He says he's Dutch, but really he's just black. Apparently the person we want is the CEO of a medical place, and then I think it's Tai Yong Medical or Bell Tower people have entered the place, and everyone in the pods has been killed. I don't love this. It doesn't like fully make sense to me that they enter and then everyone's dead by the time we regain control. I think like if Bell Tower was going around killing people in the pods and, we had to like shoot him and we could like try saving people, that'd be fine. It's like, it's creepy. Like, I think it's like, okay, but it doesn't really make sense to me that everyone's just dead like this. I don't know. I don't love it. Oh, and he like asked me to save him and I refused because he's black. So I guess he's dead. And I was able to finish the side quest with Mai by just shooting her pimp in the back of the head and then running and like getting on the subway and then coming back. And then Mai magically was no longer panicked despite standing next to her pimp's body. So I was able to finish the quest. And she's like, phew, thank God that other chick no longer has to get augmented, but we can still be whores. And I'm like, okay, you're still whores and you're probably still going to work for some pimp down the line, and you're still going to be like abused and thrown away when you're no longer profitable. So you're still probably doomed, but I'll take my reward money, I guess. And Malik's sister, Evelyn. So her boyfriend is this Asian guy, and her Asian boyfriend ended up killing her when she got pregnant because he's from a rich family. So that marriage was never going to work out. I'm just saying, like, cook the rice, pay the price. I'm just saying, I'm just saying here. I liked Malik's little revenge thing where she just has, like, the outside the hive, like, replay that conversation with the guy. After that, I just tried to talk with Tong some more. You can't talk with Tong anymore. And I'm like, that's really disappointing. I know he's not our Tracer Tong, but still, I would have liked to learn a little more about him. That's Hengsha. There's not a lot of missions for such a big place. Like, I don't know. There's Malik, the whore mission. They put in so much effort, like, to make it so detailed, and yeah, it feels disappointing. Tai Yong Medical Facility, we have to start from, like, the bottom floor. We save this guy from some poison gas. This place looks like fucking massive. I found this silent sniper rifle, which I thought was kind of cool, but I decided to keep mine just because it did more damage. I don't know, maybe that was a mistake. Like, I like the silencer on the pistol. Maybe I would have liked the silencer on the sniper rifle, because that's probably still a headshot, one shot. Something that is kind of amusing is that when you hack computer terminals, there's like a persistent Nigerian prince email scam. There's a joke about having only 4 emails max in their inbox for security reasons. And I just hack everything. That's just what I do for XP. Not that I enjoy it, but I want the XP. I was skipping hacking alarm panels before. What a mistake. That's just free XP, man. I regretted that later on. As we're exploring the place, there's the Asian lady talking to Namir. It turns out Namir was a hologram. That is bullshit. He looked like a real person there. And then we learned that Megan is actually alive. Like, no shit. This isn't a reveal. Like, I wasn't shocked at all. They talk about the Dutchman, but he's not Dutch. He's black. Lots of offices and labs here. It was pretty dull, like, layout-wise. And then we had that penthouse for the dragon lady. She tries to seduce you. She says there's a global conspiracy. There's no real boss fight. You just, like, take out some guys and then 2 robots later on. Just like taking away player agency for you to be like tricked by this bitch. Like, that doesn't feel great. Then we're on to Picus, the news agency in Montreal. We're looking for Eliza Cassan. It seems like we're in another tower. It feels very similar. I had 8 available praxis points. I don't know, like, there are parts where I would just, like, save a bunch of them, and it's like, I don't know what I want. It's like, nothing feels, like, pressing, you know? Like, whenever I had skill points, I would, like, immediately spend my skill points, because, like, ooh, I want to upgrade this, I want to upgrade that. But with here, it's like, I don't know, I basically have everything I want. I'm just kind of, like, filling out everything else. There's this magazine on AI and potentially becoming like self-aware. Note that no one has ever seen Eliza Cassan in person. I think this is the worst level by far in the entire game. It's just offices. It's just offices and computers to hack. It is so fucking boring and uninteresting, man. Goddamn. There's some emails here from Nicolette Duclair and then Morgan Everett because, hey, remember characters from the first game? We don't really introduce cool, interesting characters in this game, but here's some references to characters from the first game. It feels like a lot of padding where it's like if you skipped all the hacking shit in this level, I think this level is like nothing. Like you would breeze through it. And another thing here is that, yes, these journalists at Picus are bought and paid for by the elites. They are here to push like anti-augmentation messaging, but we get some emails that tries to portray the journalists as being like opposed to what the elites want. Like they don't want to necessarily run these articles, but they have to. In real life, they're bought and paid for. They are willing servants to our elites. They're just mouthpieces. And then we run into Eliza's room, and she's a hologram, and this is the second hologram that we couldn't tell was actually a hologram. Her room was room 404, like computer error shit. We run into a statue in a lobby that is a homage to the first game when you're in the VersaLife place in Hong Kong. This is just less impressive here. It just looks dumber. It looks worse. Another little political jab in this game is that we run into an ebook about Canada and Canada strengthening their borders in the face of economic pressure from its southern neighbor led to the virtual fortification of the country. However, the tide of migrants from the United States displaced by economic collapse continued to grow, and these illegal immigrants, nicknamed snowbacks, became a major issue for cities along the border. It was this charged political environment that would lead to a bloody skirmish when, in the winter of 2020, officers of the RCMP used lethal force to deter a horde of American economic refugees from crossing the Montana/British Columbia border near the town of Roosevelt. In this game and this world, it's white Americans, assumingly white Americans, fleeing America, seeking better opportunities in Canada, and Canada is not condemned for defending their borders and gunning down a bunch of white Americans. Yeah, they're snowbacks, right? Because while the rest of the world, the third world, tries to immigrate to countries that were built by white people, and wherever white people go, it seems like they're able to establish flourishing cities and countries, while that can't be said for other groups of people. Of course, America's going to shit, so they try to illegally cross into Canada, right? Which is something that Americans just do all the time. And then they get gunned down by the Canadians, and that's not a bad thing. For some reason, I don't think these developers would write a book about America defending their economic interests and protecting their labor market and gunning down any Browns trying to cross America's southern border. Somehow, I don't think they would write that. We end up in this weird sphere room. We have Eliza here, and she reveals that she's an AI. Not really a surprise. She might be self-aware. I'm not really sure. And then the nose ring bitch, Yelena, I don't know. She's not cool or intimidating, and I just beat her. She just looks stupid. And then we get information about Sandoval removing the implants in Megan and her team, or at least trying. He worked with that team, says that Sarif was involved. I was confused at first with the room above with like the gas canisters, and I'm like, oh, do I have the option of killing like Eliza here? No, this is for if you want like a non-lethal option to kill the nose ring chick. So not with that. You can't really interact with Eliza that much. I feel like you could interact with Morpheus in the first game more, and Morpheus wasn't like much. He was like this little side project. But like I could ask Morpheus more questions than I can ask Eliza. That's a serious downgrade. Look, the question of like whether Eliza can be like self-aware or not, I personally don't really believe in that, and I would not consider AI to be like true life. Like AI can theoretically live forever. A human being cannot. It can mass communicate. It can have like thousands, millions of conversations all at once. It has a processing, thinking power that we can't really comprehend. It can essentially like teleport right across the world because it doesn't have a physical body. I don't think AI could ever be considered life, whether or not it is quote unquote self-aware. Yeah, it wouldn't be like the equivalent of human life, but maybe if it was self-aware, like you had a robot that could make its own decisions, it would be something like more than a toaster, but I don't know what I would classify it as. Eliza is boring to me. AI ever become like human? No. The answer is no, it can't. And just the AI overall is very played out. Like we had Daedalus, we had the AI pilot in Invisible War, and now we have Eliza, and it's like, roll my fucking eyes at this shit. We are back in Detroit for part 2. Riots have commenced. I tried to walk past my apartment and I got zapped. Like something weird happened to my screen. Wayne from the police station, I got him in trouble because I used the front lobby. He comes to bitch at me, but I say I'll get him a job. He seems like a decent guy, just like a little too emotional for my taste, because it was like 2 years ago. Maybe if it was a more like private setting, I could believe like some of his responses, but it just felt a little ridiculous. Sarif wants us to go after Taggart, who is in the city, and we also want to go after Sandoval to find out like what he knows about Megan and her team. Random people on the street, like you have punks being arrested by the cops. It's just like chaos. Things are on fire. Get away from me, white boy. You cannot insult this woman back. You're never able to insult anyone else's race. But if someone calls you white boy, which is obviously being used in a derogative way here, you just have to take it. You can't do anything about it. This time in Detroit, since I didn't have hacking level 5 by the time I finished Detroit, I went through like all the old lockers and apartments that I didn't access the first time. I found this weird doctor prison apartment that was weird. I'll play some clip of when I found like some mad preachers just talking.
It will be too late!
There's this police bot. People are mad at the cops because apparently the cops are too brutal because like only like one threw a rock or a bottle. Why did the cops have to attack everyone?
Their perimeter and charged in.
Why didn't they just send a couple of guys to find the culprit instead of plowing through the crowd?
That's what I was thinking. It just made the situation worse.
Hey, I have a question. Who set all these cars on fire? Did the police set these cars on fire? Or was that these people who are mostly peaceful? Are they the ones burning the city down right now? Or is that the police? Anyways, I found a patch to the gas station roof that I did not find the first time. There's some loot up there. You cannot enter the police station, not through the roof, not through the vent, not through the sewers, or the front even. This feels extremely lacking. Like, it feels like this would be like the place to be during this time. I understand like kind of locking it down, but it felt like there should be a lot more side quests than the one that you got for the police in Detroit here. I finally did that one hallway that had electricity in it near the police station. It was just shit. Like, there was maybe like a small amount of loot, and I'm like, fuck, that was it. I started like another quest about like my past and uncovering that. There was some PI involved. This guy, Brett Radford, has been attacked in this apartment, a place I already cleared, and now the game has decided to spawn shit in. This guy talks so goddamn slow. I don't know this guy. I don't give a fuck that he's dying. I met him 5 seconds ago. And I'm just going to play some of it. It is ridiculously slow. Hurry the fuck up and die.
I ain't turning into no freak. Even if I could afford the surgery, the augments, I'd rather die than be half a machine. And I sure as hell ain't gonna live the rest of my life in a wheelchair, shitting in a goddamn diaper.
Radford.
Listen, I know there's still a few more morphine shots. Another 2. Should do the trick. Please, this is as close as I'm gonna get to begging you. Don't leave me like this. You owe me that much. Giant with a heart of gold. But don't do it for me. Do it for her.
I gave him some morphine just so he would fucking die. Who cares? I don't know him. Awful scene. And then we have Michelle Walters, a black woman who saved us when we were a baby. She was a nurse at the place we were at, apparently. Our real parents were killed in a fire. We were at White Helix Labs. There's like gene therapy there. Other kids were killed during some like experiments. She saved us. Jensen calls us her family. The only like true family that Adam Jensen has in this world is a black woman. So they're not all bad, right? You cannot access the Sarif building. The map feels so tiny in our second trip to Detroit here. I traveled to the convention center. My brain got electrified again. There's a lot of people talking at the convention center, like, fuck these augs, they're compared to just pro-abortion. I thought there is some good arguments from these two guys talking.
Just because I don't agree with you, miss.
I'm not getting hot. It just frustrates me how some of you pro-humanists act so superior. Like you have all the answers to every ethical question ever posed.
Well, who are you to think you can just turn yourself into robots, abuse drugs, and then think you can function freely in our society?
You and that asshole Taggart? Just try to take away my freedom and see what happens.
I've been a victim
not augmented. People with an axe to grind. And do you know who saved me? An augmented man, a stranger. So you tell me where the real danger comes from. The Humanity Front is just that. A front. A front for hate-mongering and William Taggart's irrational need to keep us in the Dark Ages. I'm not here to tell you that augmentations will make the world a better place. I'm here to stand up for my right to choose. When Hugh Darrow discovered the secret of augmentation, he gave us the chance to better ourselves.
Changing it back to what it used to be. To before these people started poisoning their bodies. Or to use his words, their divine engines.
See, I have no problem with amputees wanting to get augmentations.
Especially our soldiers. That's the least they deserve after defending our country. Like Taggart's patient, Ezekiel.
Right. And what happened to Ezekiel? He got himself a new limb that sent him into a spiral of despair because of the drugs. Essentially, what Bill Taggart is asking is, do we really want to have a world filled with addicts being forced to pay exorbitant amounts of money to a bunch of corporate neuropozyne pushers?
I just don't get why certain people have this loony idea that augmentations will make the world better.
Well, as you can see by what's going on out there, they have a lot of work to do to convince the world.
This bitch says that we're not different. You are different. If you have metal limbs and like a neural processor in your brain, yes, we're fucking different. Holy shit. And I think you actually find some emails, I believe it's in Montreal, but the email suggests referring to their movement as pro-human. They're pro-human, they're pro-regulation, they're not anti-aug to make the language sound better. Like in real life, the people who are anti-abortion don't call themselves like we're the anti-abortion group, even though they are anti-abortion. They're pro-life, like that, you know? I got praxis points so I could go invisible to shoot her. It didn't work, but so I stopped that. And to talk a little more about the riots going on in Detroit. So we have like police brutality. It's the augmentation crowd versus the anti-augmentation crowd. And initially, I thought the inspiration for the riots was going to be like BLM and that sort of thing. So I was wrong about that because BLM really kind of started with like Trayvon Martin and all that shit. And that was 2012, and Human Revolution came out in 2011, so that's not it. It feels like a bit like a race riot. You know, it's like they're trying to invoke some of that feeling. But it never feels earned to me. It never feels like society is at its breaking point. Like all the NPCs you go around, all they can really talk about are augmentations, 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 blah, 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 this way or that way. The world doesn't feel things have escalated to this breaking point where there's full-on riots in the street. Where it's like, is William Taggart really saying anything super extreme? It's like, hey, we should have some regulation for augmentations. They can be dangerous, and by the way, there's a bunch of criminal gangs like harvesters, but just the MC bangers like literally down the street all have augmentations and they use these to hurt people. Like, no shit, we should have some kind of regulation on these things. He's not saying anything like insane like we're gonna round up the augmented. So I just don't fully believe the escalation here. It doesn't feel genuine. Yeah, just overall, just like with world building, I don't fully believe that world that we're in. Like, yeah, it is a grimmer atmosphere. It's close to what the original Deus Ex was in terms of like that when you're on the streets. But the augmentation stuff, it never fits quite right. And Sarif is the one that tells us about the Illuminati and that the Illuminati exist and they're the secret cabal that's controlling things from behind the scenes. Like, we should be shocked by this. And I know maybe this is a bigger deal if you're a brand new player and you didn't play the original game, but even then I never felt like the Illuminati was like a they exist, you know? It's like, oh, there's the Illuminati. Like, even though we know there's like a shadowy group of people running things, it was, yeah, more about like the reveals of like what they're actually doing and what their plans and schemes are. That was like a bigger reveal than just they exist. It felt like very weak, mild reveals that didn't do much for me. And then I had no way to speed up or exit cutscenes, which I thought was so dumb. Sandoval's brother was Zeke from level 1, and Taggart threw him under the bus. I had a boss battle conversation with Taggart at his little speech thing, which was fine. I won. I chose not to embarrass him in front of everyone because I like Taggart. He makes sense. Then back at the Sarif building, I got some emails about an office bandit. Apparently, someone was going around and breaking into everyone's office. Who knows? As head of security, I'll put that at the top of my priority list. And then Mr. Darrow was here in Sarif's office. He's the guy that created Augs, and he's very ominous, yes? We're back to Hengsha in part 2, and our helicopter is attacked. I did reload to save Malik, because if you're not fast enough, Malik will get killed. So it was worth it to me to save Malik here. And then, yeah, bell towers after us. Your brain gets hurt again. You have people falling over railings and shit. And it's everyone that's augmented gets hurt. You can get a new chip at the limb clinic. Obviously, this is not a good choice to make, right? I think it's fine that that's in the game, but I think it's, again, a little heavy-handed where it's should you get a new biochip in your brain from these people who are probably not good? It's no. I did it anyway because I thought it might unlock more content. So I go and get the chip. Harvesters are now hostile overall. I don't really get why, because we're not on bad terms with Tong. It doesn't make sense to me. And Tong isn't in the hive, he's in the Harvester's base. And I can understand the Harvesters being more on guard and alert right now, but Tong is not hostile to me. So why couldn't I just talk with these guys and then go speak with Tong? Or just say, hey, Tong's going to want to talk to me. We can help each other out. It just feels like a forced combat section or / forced stealth section. Completely unnecessary. Why is this in the game, right? It's not like I left Hengsha last time and Hong was really pissed at me or something. Kind of the opposite. Puts us on the path to finding his son and rescuing him. There was a side quest that involved Mr. Darrow. We're supposed to clear it without killing anyone. And I did knock everyone out. I didn't kill anyone, but this guy was knocked out and he's face down in a puddle. He's going to drown, but technically I didn't kill anyone. And then you have to go and rescue Tong's son. I think this is a part of the DLC. I don't know if that's correct or not, or sorry, the director's cut. And this just wasn't a part of the first game, so I guess maybe you didn't get that cutscene of Tracer Tong leaving on the boat that says the Tracer later on before you enter the DLC. I guess not. But yeah, we go and rescue Tong. Tracer is a little whiny, but he seems like a good guy. His dad is evil, just rather evil. The Harvester hideout has cages where they obviously keep people and then they rip their limbs off and probably just kill them afterwards and maybe harvest the rest of their organs. Tracer set up his own kidnapping so he could leave because his dad would never let him leave on his own. It was a rather easy quest. Tong hyped it up as these are top bellwether guys, and I'm I don't know, I cleared it in 10 minutes, man. It wasn't that bad. We have the kind of dockyard, the shipyard, because we're supposed to enter a boat and get on a bell tower ship. Same with the Detroit Part 2. You cannot enter the hive when you go to Hengsha for the second time. That really blows, man. That really, really blows. That's so limited. I went back to Lim for a side quest. It glitched out, but it's easy enough to follow. I picked up a pocket secretary, but it wouldn't register that I picked it up. But you can still just go in the sewers and find the people you're supposed to talk to. The doctor wants you to stop these mercenary guys, but I spoke to them that they got auged and their memories were messed with. The guy quotes the Bible and says he's gonna start shooting rich and powerful people, and I'm yeah, all right, man. So I let him go. The doctor was kind of pissed, but I convinced him it was fine. Got a Praxis kit for the side quest, so that was worth it. Traveling around Hengsha looking for content. There's no one at that hotel whore place. And then I think we get perhaps the best level layout for the entire game. The docks where you're supposed to get on the bell tower ship. I think this is the best by far. I think it's so open. It does feel like the first game, it's close. I don't think it's like quite as good, but I think it's pretty damn good. I think this is absolutely the best level in Human Revolution, and it's fairly short, which sucks, but there's so much space here. You get to walk around. There's multiple paths, and I had a great time. This was excellent, truly excellent. However, there are no enemies like down below on like the second half. It just feels like very unpopulated down there, so I don't know why. And then you blow up the docks with Tong's bomb. Tong Jr., Tracer Tong, escapes on a boat called the Tracer. So that's where we end it. If I was playing the original game, then you would actually go to Singapore next, and then after Singapore to Panchaea. But because I had the DLC, we get a divergence from the original game to this, because it's just a part of my game. So we were on a ship. We were found out by the bell tower people and waking up. We're being tortured. All of my augmentations have been disabled. I am trapped in this room, and then suddenly you get free. The camera is off. A mysterious person contacts you saying they shut off power. It's very similar to Icarus in the first game when you're captured and you're in like MJ12, but it's really just below UNATCO headquarters, and then they open the cell for you. So all your augs have been disabled. You've basically been reset to level fucking 1, which is amazing. And you have no weapons or anything. And I just had to play a little game of ring around the rosy with these guards. You can die super quick here. Had to reset many times, but eventually I did it. Oh, you do get some praxis points and then like a lot of your guns and gear and such, but ammo is still like a bitch in this DLC to get. It's supposed to be like scarcity. This doesn't feel great because you've spent the entire game gaining praxis points and like kidding yourself out and like building a certain playstyle that you want to play, and the game is saying, no, you can't play like that right now. So I do get the frustration. I think it was like okay to fine like doing this for a setup. You're going through the ship, you find a bunch of like stasis pods. There's some references here, like I know there's like Gilligan's Island. There's like a Neuromancer one. And overall, this DLC, I'll get into this at the end, but it's incredibly gynocentric. It's very, very female oriented, and we'll talk about that later. But the person who actually let us out of our restraints is one of the people who is torturing us alongside Burke. She is a Jewish lady. I think it's Kiker or Kiter, whatever. She says that Megan isn't on the base, and she wants us to find out what's actually going on here because, of course, she's actually one of the good people within this facility. She's not an evil person. Of course she's not. I actually could not get into the detention center, the next part of the level, without speaking to her first, because you just have to do things in a certain order that the developers want you to do them in, otherwise you can't play. She cares about innocents getting hurt. She wants us to expose it. Amazing, wonderful. She's one of the only good people here, and she's a Jewish woman. Shocking. There's some Irish guy that gives us a quest to like get a rocket launcher. I had to look this up because I'm like, I'm fucking tired. I don't want to do this shit. A lot of like kind of tight quarters within the ship. There's some like more open like shipping and storage bays. The level feels like fairly copy and pasted. Like it's not a very interesting layout. We find like the prison section. It turns out some guards have been sleeping with the women here. These people have been like kidnapped off the streets. Some of them are like maybe political radicals. Others are just innocent victims. The doctors are doing something. I found a bunch of magazines on Darwin. So I'm like, holy shit, human evolution. My God, this is how they tie in greasels into the game. I was very, very wrong. Extremely wrong, you could say. There are no greasels in this game. There's something far worse. And I triggered one of those things that I've always avoided. Turns out that they explode and then come back up. So that's my fault. That's just me being a retard. So I'm just exploring shit at the moment. As I continued on, I found a woman in a cell who asks us to free her. She says that horrible things are going on, but there is a female scientist who is different from all the others. I think she also mentions Savage at this point, like Dr. Savage from the first game. The bioscanners, there are these things you have to step in, and they're disguised loading screens basically. But holy shit, do they take a long time for them to work? I think just a traditional loading screen would be faster than the bioscanners. And the bitch of it is, there are multiple points where you have to go from one end of the ship to the other end of the ship, and you have to go through the bioscanner twice. And that happens a handful of times. It's incredibly annoying each time it happens. There was a part where you have to take an elevator down. It took me way too long and an embarrassingly long time to find the panel for the elevator. In my defense, it really blended in, and I just didn't see it. But that sucked. Cannot have your guns out when you're speaking with the Jewish lady. Which, okay, alright then. I did like this email from Bob Page to the one female scientist. He's so wormy in his emails. I really like Bob Page. There's talk about a organic computational matrix. They're building supercomputers. The female scientist decides to help us. Burke is noted in some emails, or maybe she just says that he is a sexist. So we have to defeat Burke, who is a sexist. He's a white male. He speaks with a southern accent, and he has like light blonde hair. I'm shocked. There was this table in the lab that glitched out on me, and I just couldn't like put the piece in to get like a little bit of XP. So that was gay. The elevator gets stuck. Nina Sullivan, the woman we were talking to before who asked us to save her, she's no longer in her cell. She's in a cell like with the other prisoners now. Keitner has been shot, and I have to go stop the poison gas, from killing everyone. These people are being gassed. Wink, wink. I'm supposed to care. She also gets an incredibly long death scene, like that stupid PI guy that I'm supposed to give a fuck about when I just met them not long ago at all. Poison gas is killing everyone. They can die if you don't clear the room fast enough. I think it's like a 10-minute timer or so. After you clear the bad guys, you have some options. Either like vent the gas and kill the female scientist that's going to expose what's going on here, or you kill all the prisoners here. There is a third option that the game does not mention, so I would recommend the third option. I thought at first that this option was locked behind you having the jumping aug, which I did not have unlocked at this time. I thought that was really gay, like holy shit, you can miss out on this option if you don't have the jumping aug, but you can do it. You just have to get 2 very small cardboard boxes, bring them through the vent, and then just stack them, and then you can jump up, and then get in the room and shoot the poison gas canister, and you can save them all. Saved everyone. I spoke to Nina. She was thankful. And then you have Keitner, you have Dr. Kavanaugh, the female doctor, and Nina. We are a very female-focused DLC, right? Our bad guy is a sexist southerner with white hair, like I said. Yes, Savage in here, and while Savage doesn't seem really evil, he's also not willing to risk his job to help these women and these people being abused. He's trying to look out for himself. The people trying to do the best here, the Kavanaugh, our doctor, who's going to expose the truth, a woman. Keitner, trying to expose the truth and help everyone, a Jewish woman. And Nina, who is like the woman that interacts with us and we're supposed to rescue. She's obviously a woman. There's no good men here. You could say it's kind of character assassination for Gary Savage, who's like a doctor we're supposed to like. In the first game, I think I liked him. And now he's kind of cowardly and weak, and he's not willing to risk his neck for someone else. It's just about the ladies in this DLC. I got some loot out of Quinn. He is something more. There's some more loading bays to go fight Burke. You get some really generic lines from Burke, like, join me, you've killed so many, what's the difference between you and me, blah, 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 I killed Burke. He was a boring, like, very generic villain, and he was a sexist, so it's a good thing that we killed him. We have a final confrontation and reveal with Quinn, our Irish kind of arms dealer in the bowels of the ship. He is Breton, the guy that was speaking to us before. He isn't with any global organization. These guys fight the Illuminati. Quinn was legitimately a surprise. This was maybe one of the only things in the game that actually surprised me. Yeah, I didn't see this coming at all. I thought Breton was going to be like an AI or something, but all right, it got me. You get everything back at the end of the game, and then you can reapply your praxis points how you see fit. So if you made like not ideal choices before, you can make good choices now. So that's what I did. And then there's some cryptic talk at the end. We could have told him the truth. DLC ends and the game would have just continued from this point. On to Singapore. Some of the scientist signals are here, but Megan is not here. Sarif and the others are on the way to Panchaea, and I'm going to have to rescue and speak to all the scientists. The original game had some pop culture references in it, and I didn't love it. I don't think that is great, but this one I think is a bit worse with their references. They have some emails that reference The Office. That's very cringe. There were a lot of people out of it downstairs. One computer had a mention of MK Ultra. This felt so weak compared to the conspiracy theories presented in the first game. Just like, hey, one email mentioning MK Ultra. Wow, that's really out there. You go around all the scientists, you speak to them. The one Russian scientist was killed, but the others agree to help you to knock the system down so you can get to the next area. So you do that, and then you're in this weird ass lab, which is really disturbing. And I thought this was cool, at least. I don't think it's the best, but it's at least unique. It's different from an office. Dragon Lady is there. Us going to Lim has taken effect and getting the biochip. It fucks with us this whole fight. It's not that bad though. I have the revolver with the exploding attachment, so all my bullets do a fuck ton of damage. Namir looks cooler here with the muscles and shit, but he's still dumb. He's still kind of a dummy. And then we have found Megan, who used our DNA to bind Augs to people. Her room is totally white. It's really weird. One thing about Megan using our DNA is, I think this is just by chance. This isn't a deep lore thing from what I can tell. And it's just by chance that she was lucky enough to run into us, develop a relationship with us, and then try out our DNA. And wow, that was the magic lucky cure. It's so random. That's bullshit. There's also an ebook in her safe. I think it mentions a blind guy named Jens. So I don't know if that's Jensen or not. Maybe he's involved in some kind of augmentation thing because JC and Paul are clones. So maybe there's something going on with that. Also, Megan being alive, not a surprise. But Megan also working with the bad guys. Not really surprised. That has been a pretty common cliche recently, to subvert having a damsel in distress, because you can't just do that anymore. You can't just have a heroic, decent guy who goes to save his woman, right? Cowboy Bebop, the Netflix show. Don't subject yourself to that garbage. But me and some friends, we were flipping through it. But in Cowboy Bebop, Julia in the original, she's not a huge character, but she's important to Spike, right? She has a role to play. And I don't think it's a bad role. I don't think it's a demeaning role. But in the Netflix show, Julia, is trying to become a crime boss of the syndicate, and it's very gay and cringe because you can't just have a female character be a damsel in distress. So of course, Megan is evil here, and something that I felt was just god awful with this game, just something that's just fucking terrible. All this game has been about finding the killers of Megan, and then it became about finding Megan herself when we learned that she was actually alive. And even though Jensen was a cop and should have put two and two together, it was a big deal for him to find out that Megan was alive. And here she is, the woman that we used to love and wish that there was still a relationship between us. And we spend so little time with her, barely any time at all. You know, all these dumb boss conversation battles that I hate? Why the fuck do we not get a boss conversation battle with Megan? Would that not make a great deal of sense? Would that not be really good? That would be one of the few times where I think a boss conversation would be fitting, right? It's just such a wasted, missed opportunity. Megan just overall is just very lacking as a character, but like I guess she will be developed more in Mankind Divided. I have not run into her yet as I've started Mankind Divided. I only just got done with Prague. I spent like 18 and a half hours in Prague, but I just like landed in Golem City. Megan was mentioned like early on, I think in like the opening cutscene. So I guess we'll run into her at some point, and I guess they'll develop her. I don't know. She was just like, Megan, I came all this way for you. And it's like, all right, bye, Adam. And then she's just in a jet with the other scientists, and they go away. And then we take a pod to Panchaea, and I'm like, that's it with Megan. Like, she was like the hook. She was the crux of this game, and it just doesn't really fucking matter because she's just, bye, Adam. But we land in Panchaea, which is this, like, supposed to fix global warming. We're in the Arctic facility bullshit. It's this huge environment to explore outside. I liked it. I thought it was very cool. It reminded me of the shipyards in like Hengsha Part 2. Like, that was cool. That's interesting. It feels like a horror game. There's good sound here. There's no enemies. It's just creepy and weird. What happened? And yeah, you're just kind of exploring around this ruined facility. Such a shame that it comes down to like rage zombies in a Deus Ex game. That's really a fucking shame. That's what it comes down to. We do get a little like jab, I think, from the developers about the Trudeaus. The Trudeaus are like crying about like not having big enough rooms or something. So, whoa, are developers on our side? Like they don't like the Trudeaus. They gave some really lukewarm takes on Justin Trudeau. No, the developers are not on our side. But yeah, they make a little jab at Justin Trudeau. There's a shit ton of ammo here. And then we have our final boss convo with Darrow. Said it had to be done. I kind of agree that there were better ways. He wanted augmentations to be taken off the table. Thought that this would be best for humanity, that they were too dangerous. The Illuminati wanted no one to use augs to oppose them. We have him literally standing next to an American flag with some fire in the background. Very subtle. It's almost as clever or interesting as Daenerys Targaryen and then the dragon wings open to either side of her. Yes, I get the symbolism here. Says that this isn't what he wanted. Like, really? Like, you had no plan at all? You were just going to, like, make all the augmented people into rage zombies and that was it? There was no other plan after that? It was like, part 1, turn everyone into rage zombies. Man, I don't know what's going to happen next, but oh well. It says that the tech he made won't be the future we want, so I did not, like, get Darrow to commit suicide or anything like that. I'll talk more about Darrow and, like, the Illuminati and their plans once I run through the rest of this. But the game is now you mowing down huge crowds of zombies. What the fuck? This is so awful. I literally could not believe this shit, man. This could not be further from Deus Ex. Holy shit. I am literally killing huge crowds of zombies and the big stockpile of ammo around the map. It makes sense now. You get no XP for killing them. They're enemies. They're trying to murder me. I should get XP. That's bullshit. That's bad game design. And you can still actually visit a limb clinic here and buy Braxis kits, which I found to be somewhat silly, but I did. Taggart asks us for help because he's trapped. There's a lot of lockers here to pad out the time. Sarif wants our help too. He wants us to blame Humanity Front for this, while Taggart wants us to blame augmented people. So, something I want to mention about how Taggart and Sarif are designed. If you don't speak to either of them, you get 2 options for your endings, and that is to blow up Panchaea, or that is to go forward with the truth, which is what Darrow wanted. You can pick either of those options if you don't speak to Taggart or Sarif. Now, to talk to Sarif. But to speak to Sarif, You have a vent that leads to Sarif, and you also have stairs to get to him. For Taggart, you have 2 paths as well. You have a vent, and you also have a level 5 locked door that you can only open with like a, unlocking device, or you have to have capture level 5. Those are your only options. So yes, you can use vents to get to both characters. The devs deliberately wanted to make you work harder to reach Taggart because his vent is also in a more awkward position, like further outside. I think you're outside by like kind of a rail line or something, and it's a little hidden. It's a lot easier to get to Sarif than to get to Taggart. That's very deliberate by the developers, and yeah, I don't appreciate that. Also, while you're in Taggart's room, several of the NPCs in there are mean to you. No one is mean to you when you're in Sarif's room. Again, this is developers being not very subtle at all about who they want you to pick. Taggart did offer me a place in the new order, so yeah, I'm like, Taggart's my boy, he's looking out for me.
So who gets to make those rules?
Men with wisdom, strength, and tenacity to know what's right. Proven leaders who distinguish themselves like you, Mr. Jensen. You've certainly earned the right to be one of us. All you have to do is take it.
We have a long goddamn elevator ride downstairs, and then we find the human computer brains, who are all female, because again, in the Missing Link DLC, everyone of importance is female, because the only people that can be like weird human computers are also just women and not men. Again, that doesn't feel like Deus Ex. That feels like rather Japanese. So now we have like the human computer brain room with the rotating turrets and Zhao. This is like the weirdest boss battle I think I've really played in the game. And then it has you hacking and shit, and you can just blow up the turrets with explosive ammo, and it's fine. There's a few waves of enemies, and then Zhao is killed. I don't give a fuck that Zhao is dead. It just feels like this weird, rushed, hacked on boss battle that was completely unnecessary. And she's like, I don't know. The computer women overall are just so insane and bizarre. I can't imagine what it was like to play the original game without the missing link where they're introduced. And just, here are the computer women who are not in Deus Ex at all. And it's just insane. It is fucking insane that they're a part of this game. They absolutely do not fit. And then you enter the infamous ending room. Eliza Cassan says that this is not the end of the world, but you can see it from here.
Hello, Adam. Welcome to the Edge. It is not the end of the world, but you can see it from here.
After a totally not needed boss fight, you have 4 endings to choose from. The self-destruct option kills everyone that's here, and then the world will just have to figure things out on their own. Sarif, there's higher values and more stability, would deny the very essence of who we are, become gods. Darrow, the world knows the truth. There's like Nazi marching, tech is being put away, but we retain our humanity, no mention of the Illuminati. The best ending, Taggart, we're afraid of chaos, absolute freedom is no better than chaos. Antifa imagery, there's a door being shut and a loud noise accompanied by that. I just hope they stand by what they say. It's obvious that the devs don't want you to pick that end. No other ending has Adam Jensen say, I just hope they stand by what they say. It's only the Taggart ending that does this.
Absolute freedom is no better than chaos. Society needs laws and regulations to protect it. So if the men and women behind Taggart need to work in the shadows, pulling strings to enable us to head in a safe direction, will supporting them be all that bad? If they're as wise as Taggart says, how bad will their leadership be? I just hope they stand by what they say.
All of these endings, which I'm only going to play a little bit of them, are made up of crappy stock footage. There's nothing concrete about the choices that you made. In Invisible War, a game I fucking hated, they had extra lines of dialogue that were unique to the ending you chose. They had new animations and art to showcase. They were rather brief, but there was more effort and uniqueness put into those 4 endings than the 4 endings of Human Revolution, despite its big budget. How awful. What a terrible choice that these endings are. And yeah, just entering a singular room and like pick the endings you want, which is like Invisible War. And yes, the first game did have you like choose what ending you wanted. You did have to move around different parts of Area 51 to accomplish the ending that you wanted. I think that was better than this, right? While the endings in the original game were not super long, it felt like you were making like a really big impact on the world. Like you are literally changing world events. Invisible War, still, yeah, your endings are making a big deal. While it didn't feel like there were really good endings in Invisible War, and in here, because there's nothing concrete, there's nothing about you and what happens to you and your choices. There's no mention of Megan or anything that happens to Adam Jensen, like after joining Taggart's cabinet, you know, we worked to overcome blah, blah, blah. There's nothing like that. So, yeah, these endings feel like shit. They're absolute dog shit, which I guess is fitting for this game. And then if you play through the entire credits, there's a Megan reveal at the end. It's just some dialogue. Bob Page is talking to Morgan Everett, telling him to find something for the Morpheus project. And then Megan says that she's looking forward to whatever comes next or the new project.
You worry too much, Morgan. There's nothing we can't manage given time. She's here. I have to cut this short. Keep going through the wreckage. Maybe we'll find something we can use for the Morpheus initiative. Come in. Dr. Reed. We're so pleased you decided to join us.
Where else could I go?
No regrets, my dear. As Ariadne told Theseus before he entered the Minotaur's labyrinth, always forward, never left or right. You'll be very interested in our current project. We're breaking new ground.
Yes, the nanite virus chimera is quite intriguing. I'm looking forward to seeing the hybrid project up close, Mr. Page.
And so you shall. But please, call me Bob.
Yeah, so Megan, obviously she was working with Bob Page, and she's a part of all this shit. She's like a girl boss, whatever. We don't resolve anything at the end because obviously all of the endings cannot be true, right? It's kind of the start of Invisible War problem where, oh, all of the endings from the last game all simultaneously happened. Cool, that doesn't work. And from Mankind Divided, it just refers to it as the incident. And yeah, none of the endings, I guess, really happened or really did anything. Nothing's really like resolved. It doesn't feel like you really had any impact on the world, you know? It just like, poof, it ended. So now I'm going to talk about the Illuminati's plot and Darrow and why I also don't find that very compelling or interesting as well. The main theme of the game is augmentation, regulation, no regulation. That's our main theme. And behind the scenes, the Illuminati is the hidden hand controlling the world who want to stop augmentation from getting outside of their control, right? Which is why they want to shut down Megan's research. And it's also why they push for anti-augmentation media and such, because they're just afraid. And they created the biochips to stop people from using their augs against them, right? My question is, why the hell are they afraid of augmentation? They should embrace augmentation. They should want every man, woman, and child to be augmented. And here's why. A guy with a robot hand is not a threat to the Illuminati. He is still just a guy. It is said in the game that augmentations are incredibly expensive. Okay, so up front, since you're the guys who control a lot of the augmentations, you're making a fuck ton of money off people just getting limbs augmented. All right, that's one. Two, everyone in the world who gets augmentations must take neuropozyne to keep their augmentations. Neuropozyne is made, only VersaLife creates neuropozyne, and Bob Page owns VersaLife. He has an absolute monopoly on this. It makes sense to take out Megan's research because it would make people be able to have augmentations without neuropozyne, and you would no longer have a monopoly on this. Neuropozyne would be fucking worthless, right? That all makes sense. The Illuminati moving against Megan, that makes sense. Darrow deciding to make rage zombies instead of working with the Illuminati's plan, I don't buy that. And Darrow is also a guy who, despite inventing augmentations, he has a strange genetic thing where he can't use augmentations on himself. Megan was creating a cure that would let people have augmentations without neuropozyne. Wouldn't that allow him to have augmentations too? Couldn't he privately use Megan's research on himself so that he would be able to use the augs that he desperately wants to use instead of like getting pissed off at the whole world? Because part of it was that he didn't get to have augmentations, so he doesn't want anyone to have them. Like he could have his augmentations and just live like a quiet private life with Megan's research, which the Illuminati now has. That doesn't mean that they have to like give this miracle cure to the rest of the world. They could keep it secret, right? And Darrow isn't a guy that's going to live forever. He seems like he's an old man right now. So what? He just like lives a private life for, I don't know, a couple, 2 decades or so before he dies, and he gets to use his augmentations. I don't know. Why not do that? Apparently, the Illuminati doesn't want the whole population to have access to augs, which are already very expensive, so not too many people, percentage-wise, have augmentations. Also, they control the drug for everyone that everyone has to take forever. The Illuminati is just winning, right? They're already like dominating the market. So once Megan's off the table, why would you keep funding anti-augmentation propaganda? Again, random people on the street who don't even know the Illuminati exists are not going to like threaten you. Like some guy that got his arm chopped off at a lumber mill, so now he has a robo arm, is not going to like do battle with the Illuminati. That's fucking stupid. You would want everyone to have augmentations because you would make so much money off of them. I guess your only real threat would be some type of counter elite that have their own augmented soldiers. But you would love the civilian population to have augs. You would fucking love it. This would be like the greatest money-making scheme ever, right? You create forever patience with your big pharma scheme. I just don't see how like augmentations will upset the balance of world order. I don't fucking see it. I don't think that was presented well enough in the game. And yeah, I think the biochip is just kind of dumb. That's the game. Mediocre mysteries to uncover. It doesn't feel like Deus Ex. I could go over all the bitching points I made at the start of the video, but yeah, it's a weak ending. It's weak characters, story, villains. A lot of things are a downgrade. I strongly stand by this not being a strong game overall, and it's definitely not a good entry point for Deus Ex, and it should not be rated as highly as the first game. I think that's insane. Like, boo-hoo, the original doesn't have perfect graphics. Like, okay, fucking deal with it. I do hate with just modern games, and every game has to be like photo fucking realistic, and they all look the same, and they all look like shit. That's just more of a rant about just kind of graphics. I don't love it. Like, I don't give a shit if a game has good graphics if it's not fun to play. And then also I don't like the characters or the story. But like ultimately, first things first, a game has to be fun. And if I'm not having fun, then just fuck it, man. I didn't have fun with this. I just found it kind of tedious and shitty. So that is my rant review of Human Revolution. I wasn't expecting much going in, and I was still disappointed. As I've said, I've started Mankind Divided. I am nearly 20 hours in. I don't know how long the game's going to take to beat. I'm going in blind. I assume that like exploring Prague for the first time is like the biggest use of your time, and things might just go faster from here on out in terms of exploring, but we'll see. That's still probably a few weeks away. If you haven't seen it, then yeah, I did a video on Invisible War. I think the video I did on the original Deus Ex is not very good, so I don't know if I would recommend that. I think the Invisible War one is done better. Got a video on me complaining about Fire Emblem, like Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, and talking about that game. So you can check that out if you want. I don't have a ton of video game content. I usually do like book reviews, like indie book reviews. However, if you know Brandon Sanderson and you want to hear me complain about Brandon Sanderson, that video is out. Cultural Drive-By, the book equivalent of a drive-by shooting, that's out. Also, I just put out a Troth video. It's a long one, but I talk about a bunch of indie books I read recently and just go through them, what I thought worked or didn't work. So if that interests you and you want to look at indie books, some of them are from people on this side of things. So yeah, check that out if so inclined. And that is the video. Dislike if you dislike, or you could like if for some reason you enjoyed this, which I don't know why you would enjoy it. And to wrap it up, I am going to shamelessly shill my own book, Dualhan Solro, which means Dualhan Summer. It is a dark fantasy book about a man named Dualhan who is traveling around with a talking head named Pig, and they battle monsters and do some stuff with Irish mythology. There's this war going on, and this young girl named Neve tasked them with finding her father. So yeah, if you're looking for a dark fantasy book, you can check that out. It's $9 on Amazon. The first chapter is free on my Substack. I'll have a link to that below. And it comes with artwork. Some of the artwork is on the screen now. There's 14 images inside. Wow, aren't they beautiful? So at least the art is good, right? In terms of videos coming up, Mankind Divided should be next. So I'd probably say a couple weeks for that. You know, hopefully before the end of November. I think that's doable. But so far, there's so much to talk about. Aug's Lives Matter. We're making comparisons to concentration camps. Golem City, being stopped and inspected for your papers. That Epstein chick who helps forge permits. Oh my God, I'm so excited. And I know there's more to come. I'm really looking forward to Mankind Divided. But that is going to be it for me. Thank you for watching, and White Pill Media out.